back to my customer example, what the client didn't realize was when they were communicating to their prospective clients, if you went to their website and you read their materials, none of that actually talked like a real customer talked. The language they used, the attitude they exhibited, none of those things said, I'm like you, and people like you and I get along, so let's do business together. This is really important. Your character of your company, the style that you do business, these are things you want to work into your value proposition. It's really, really critical. I work with one company that is selling enterprise software to small businesses. And over again, the sales reps run into a problem, and that is simply this. They run into staple shoppers that they try to treat like enterprise customers, or that don't even get the value proposition. And the mindset of an enterprise customer and a small mom and pop shop couldn't be different. Their language, how they explain things and what they do has to be completely different for the small companies. Those reps that use that language and the new marketing materials and the different sales tools that were created for this client by our team have helped them do that. Next, it may need to be more personal than corporate. Here's the deal. People buy things, not companies. In reality, how you communicate down to an individual level is going to affect how well you're able to get your product out the door. If you communicate as a person, not as a company, people will respond to you because it's not the corporation that makes a big decision. It's an individual in that corporation. And if you show them that you think like them, you communicate like them, you believe what they believe, you understand them, they are going to respond to you. Now, what do you see if you look at, for example, most press releases? If you go to businesswire.com, what do you see? The so-and-so corporation has announced today a very new value-added initiative to provide higher returns to our clients and a superb level of service, blah, blah, blah. There's nothing personal about that. What happens in those situations is it comes down entirely to the sales force to convince the customer that despite what the company is doing, that despite the way the company is, that they will take care of that particular customer. That's a problem. You don't want to have to convince your customers that despite everything they read on your website, that despite the marketing materials they get, which are just basically feature vomit, that despite the fact that they can barely get into your customer service organization if they try, that somehow your company will take care of them. People buy things from people, not from companies. How well you communicate down to an individual prospective customer will determine how well your product fares in the market. Salespeople understand this. Let me give you another example. In the chemical industry, if you're selling chlorine or salt, it's often the quality of the R&D staff that assists in making the customer application work, or the strength of the relationship with the salesperson that provides a competitive advantage. If you are using the Killer Value Prop Toolkit, the IBM case study provides more details on how you can do the same. Next, you probably won't get it right the first time. This is very hard for us perfectionists. You know, years ago, and especially in the dot-com boom, it was a common belief that being first to market was how companies could differentiate themselves. Now, what happened is companies realized that being second or third or fourth is better because you can improve and position yourself differently than what's already there. Your killer value prop is exactly the same. You will likely not get it just right the first time, maybe not the second or even the fourth time. That's why what you need to do is train your team to be able to iterate your value proposition and to work on it consistently. Especially today in this tough environment, you're going to have to change your value proposition several times, maybe every 6 months, maybe even every 3 months. The companies that are able to build KVP intelligence into their businesses and are willing to look at what they do and how they communicate with customers and modify their value propositions and what their sales message are going to be the ones that are standing when the smoke clears. You need to learn to let customer feedback validate the components of your KVP. And then for customers that don't like what you have to say, or for KVPs that don't match what your customers say when you interview them, you're going to have to reject it. Just listen. Don't worry about getting it right the first time. Just be sure that you test and learn from the market before you do your larger general availability launch or corporate-wide kickoff. When the product or is shipping already, or at the sales kickoff meeting, is no time to learn what works and what doesn't work in your KVP. Now, let me share one more thing. I cut my teeth in turnarounds. So over and over again, I went into companies that did not have the luxury to change their product. They had to sell what they had. And what we had to find out was why their existing customers were buying, why they were staying, and then take that language, that message, all those reasons, and turn it into messaging and value propositions that help the sales force sell the product to the rest of the potential customers. Now, especially in a turnaround situation where customers are ticked, this can be tricky, but you can still do it. If you have 10 happy customers, you have some of the secret ingredients you need to discover what your killer value proposition is. And you need to get inside their heads. Remember what we said earlier in one of the last videos. Nothing that isn't validated by a customer anything that's not validated by a customer is nothing more than an educated guess. You need to get inside your customers' heads. You need to find out why they buy, why they stay, what were the reasons they chose you, who were the people they were looking at, what are the top 3 reasons they would recommend you to somebody else, what they think your secret sauce is, and listen to them. You need to have a recorder on the table recording them. Oh, and by the way, if you're going to do this, do it over the phone. And if people are somewhat squirrely about being recorded, start with a comment like, look, I'm a really bad note taker, and I promise you that this will not appear on CNN before 7:30 tonight, or on the internet before 9. That usually gets a laugh and lightens them up. Because in that interview with the customers, they are going to tell you things that you didn't expect. They're going to tell you stuff that you didn't know, and if you turn around and test it on new customers, you're just going to be amazed at how much different the response is to your value proposition. Okay, diagnostic question. Which of the insider secrets that I've just shared with you applied to you? Which have you used and which have you missed? Are you still inventing your value propositions on your way to getting a killer value proposition? Are you still inventing them in a conference room? Are you still inventing it as a bunch of people banter back and forth? Are you still just talking about the product? Are you just doing feature show up and throw up? Are you talking like everybody else? And are you following the herd instinct? Well, don't. Go to your customers. Realize that these insider secrets have been learned after trial and error in company after company after company. Apply these things and your value proposition will become killer.